How losing $60,000 turned me into a real estate developer. Most of you guys kind of know my journey from the videos you see uploaded so far, but today I wanted to kind of recap and give you a breakdown of where I started in real estate to where I am today, what I've done so far, and then hopefully from out of this story, you guys can pull questions and comments that you can ask me, so I can generate more content for you guys. But I wanted to tell you guys about how losing $60,000 ended up being one of the best things that could have happened to me. The journey started back in January of 2022. I have a little Google Doc put together here to keep me on point. But to backtrack on my journey, January 1st of 2022, I was learning how to wholesale real estate. So that day, January 1st of 2022, I was actually sitting in somebody else's office as an acquisitions manager. At the time, I had no idea I was an acquisitions manager because I was still learning how the model worked. The guy that I essentially was working for, I found him on a podcast. He was with someone really big in the wholesale industry on his show. So when I found out he was in Charlotte, I just started sending stuff to him. I didn't know what I was doing. I just went out and said, you know what? I've heard about this Drive for Dollars thing. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to just send him everything that I think is an opportunity and see what he says. So here I am. I find this guy on Instagram. I start driving in my car. I'm listening to the podcast, sending this dude addresses of every property that I think is a potential opportunity. And then he messages back. He's like, this isn't a deal. This isn't a deal. LLC owned, all this stuff, kind of giving me some feedback. And then finally he says, hey, man, like you've been kind of going hard, sending me deals. Why don't you swing by my office? Let's talk to each other and see how maybe we can help each other out. So I explained to him, what I was doing at the time, which was rental arbitrage, and how I wanted to get into wholesale to scale my real estate journey and portfolio. So we have that conversation. He ends up telling me to come to his office January 1st. And he said, let's partner together. You take your LLC, I'll take my LLC, and we'll do deals together. But essentially, I was coming in to be an acquisition manager and just didn't know. So January 1st, I was learning what the wholesale model looked like. Grateful for that time because obviously it was, it taught me a bunch of things that I needed to know. Um, I did do about 3 or 4 deals with that guy. I was earning like 10% on the deals. I'm trying to think. Yeah, 10% on the deals, no base, all commission. So as you can imagine, money was tight. I wasn't really making much off of it. If I didn't have my rental arbitrage units, I probably wouldn't have been able to survive. But I was doing that, right? And the experience was so key because I was in the trenches every single day. And it took me 3 months to actually close and get paid on my first deal. I contracted my first deal within the first couple of weeks, but it ended up being something we had to terminate. So that's when I started, January 1st, 2022. It took me 3 months to close and get my first payout on a deal. And then I had 2 more follow-ups shortly after. But I wanted to grow in that company. I wanted to do more. I wanted to bring more deals to the table. It got to a point where I had agents bringing me deals, and I wanted to JV those deals because it wasn't, his marketing spend. I said, hey, I'm now finding these deals and bringing them to the table. Is there an opportunity to partner as a 50-50 partner? So that leads us to March 2022, when I was kicked off the team for becoming more than just a closer. Essentially, what I tried to do was I tried to help out one of our dispo managers or the dispo manager. I emailed the entire team in a CC, and I emailed at the time one of the funds that was buying properties from us, sent out a deal to them. And I got the feedback that we needed, but essentially I rubbed the dispo manager the wrong way, who then complained to the head guy. And, we went back and forth. And essentially they said, hey, like, this business already, the model is probably best that you go out and do your own thing. So that's what happened in March. So I kind of got kicked off the team, which was crazy. But while I was there, I ended up meeting who would become my business partner. I met my business partner through that company, and we kind of talked back and forth. And she was like, hey, like you know how to do this thing. I know how to do this thing. Let's go do our own thing. Right. So from April to July of 2022, we ended up JVing my LLC and her LLC and making about $80,000 in profit. The first deal we actually sold was right back to the guy that kicked me off the team. We just knew his business model and what his buy box was. So we kind of reverse engineered and found the perfect property that was on market, got it under contract for $70,000 less than what it was listed for. and sold it back to him for a 25K profit. So that was the first deal. We did 2 more deals, and now we had 80K in profit. We realized that we were really good with working with each other. I liked one side of the business, she liked the other. I was acquisitions, she was dispo. It was perfect. So we said, hey, let's go ahead and form an entity together. So we formed our company, Queen City Solution, which is a wholesale operation, in August of 2022. Now, like most young operators who are making a bunch of cash and think they have everything figured out, we tried to scale too quickly, which ended up backfiring very fast. So we hired a bunch of guys. We, weren't closing deals and burning through cash extremely quick. On top of that, we thought we were advanced and knew what we were doing, so we wanted to jump straight into flipping. Lost on a couple flips, but then we bought one specifically in September of 2022 that would end up losing $60,000. That deal we bought in September 2022. I'm going to flip over to this page right here on Zillow. This was the property, 717 Nance Ave in High Point. You could go fact check me on this. We lost this deal, or we bought this 1911 build house for $40,000 in September of 2022. It says $60,000 because I think that was something with our assignment paperwork or whatever, but we really bought it for $40,000. We bought this property with private capital, so we had raised money from 2 people, bought the deal, started renovating the house. We actually had a general contractor that was only licensed in the state of South Carolina running the project on this North Carolina 1911 build. The house was a full gut. What I know now, a tear down, but we tried to go in and renovate the property, which was a nightmare. The guy had just had a baby, the general contractor, and he had a lot on his plate. He was driving from Charlotte to this property every single day, which was like an hour out. And day by day, he was losing guys from his team up until the point where he gave us a call one day and said he couldn't move forward anymore. So we were left with this project on our hand. We tried to put a little bit more money into it to keep the project rolling, but ultimately we were left with the choice of either stopping what we were doing in our tracks and selling for a loss, or continuing to dive deeper into this money pit with no clear sight of how we were going to get out of it. So we ended up selling that property for $35,000, which was a net loss of $60,000 to us in January of 2023. So as you can imagine, you're probably like, wow, like that's gotta suck. And it stung. It hurt pretty bad because we lost $60,000 that we technically didn't even have anymore. But as fate would have it, the next month, we actually had our first 6-figure month wholesaling, which was able to pay back most of our debt in that month. Now, we still had some lingering debt for the months to pass, but that was able to catapult us and keep us on our feet just by going back to what we knew best, which was wholesaling real estate. There's no real risk in it other than, tying up deals that could be terminated. But we were able to kind of profit that money back by doing that. And then fast forward to March of 2023, and for the rest of the year, we just continue to double down into what we knew, which was wholesaling. But I am skipping a big piece, which was January of 2023. Because of that loss, we also paid to jump into a new development course. My mindset was, hey, like when we flipped that house and we kept tearing down stuff, we kept finding new problems. But if we would go and do new construction, we are building from the ground up. There's no tearing down a wall and finding out what's happening. We're building those walls. So we started learning in January of 2023 as the same time that we took that loss, while we were doing wholesale deals and learning development and zoning and all the tools that we needed to go out and find development opportunities. So with that being said, we continued to wholesale for that rest of the year. We actually entitled a project from one single family into 35 townhomes with that mentor, which was a great learning process as well. But technically, that wasn't our first single development deal. We jumped into a big project. We learned entitlement. It took 7 months, which was a great experience. But we wanted to build houses, and that wasn't what got us there. So in 2024, we hyper focused on finding lots. And by April of 2024, from our wholesale operation, we were able to find a mobile home. It was connected to city sewer and water. We tore that mobile home down and began developing our first single family home. So that was the first opportunity. We bought it in April 2024 and ended up selling it in November of 2024, making $320,000. It was this house right here, 132 Wayne Ave. Our first project, it turned out great. A 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,254 square feet home. And as you can see, the finishes were really, really nice. And as you know, if you're a part of my subscribers here, or if you don't know, this was built by a general contractor that we ended up making a partner. So we saw this guy on Instagram. He was crushing it. We reached out and said, hey, if we go out and find lots and raise capital and bring it to you, can we JV? He came to us and said, yeah, that'll work. Let's do it. So that's what we did. We took our wholesale expertise to go and partner with someone with the opposite strength of ours, which was development. And together we were able to complete a successful build. I tell people, all the time, that's one of the questions I get is like, how did I go out and do my first construction project? Well, chances are you're not going to get approved for a new construction loan unless you have a ton of flip experience that turned out good. And for us, we had flip experience that turned out bad. So we wouldn't have gotten a construction loan on our own. But by us partnering with a seasoned general contractor, we were able to go ahead and do that and get that first loan, which catapulted us into finding more opportunities. So fast forward through the rest of 2024 and into 2025, I went on a lot spree and found a bunch of more projects. And as of today, we have built and sold 4 homes. We have 2 new construction homes closing this week. And then we have 15 active projects in the pipeline that are all to be built and sold. All of this stemming from, January 1st, I'm learning what wholesale was, to January of 2023, losing $60,000. And then fast forward till today of 2 years of straight development work. It's been a blessed journey so far. I want to continue to obviously grow in this field of development, and obviously continue to use the tool that got me here, which is wholesaling, to stack cash. But my ascension model and plan is not to remain in the development industry or just remain tied down to real estate. My game plan is to ascend into stacking more cash, doing and holding more multifamily units, which can ascend me into commercial properties. I think commercial is the ultimate asset to hold if you want something that's truly passive. Obviously, if you can get into the triple net space, your tenants are paying for things and taking care of the property, and overall, you're just dealing with better clientele. So my goal is to scale into that side of the business, to feed passion projects of mine and my wife's, which is cabin projects, boutique hotels. That's the vision of where I'm heading currently. So I wanted to share with you guys what my journey was so that you guys can obviously go back to this video, dissect it, see what I've done to get to where I'm at. Obviously, that's just a grand overview. I can break down a lot more of this stuff in detail. And I plan to actually go into a series with you guys breaking down stories on how I found deals, contracted deals, purchased deals, funded deals, and ultimately got deals from A to Z, finish to close, contract to pay, contract to cash. So that's it for today's video, man. I appreciate you guys for obviously tapping into my channel. Make sure you guys drop a comment on any questions you guys have and what you guys want to see in the next video. And I appreciate you guys. I'll catch you on the next one.